let's break down the Leah land flipping workflow. And if you understand these 8 points, you really understand the land business. So everything starts with deciding what market are we going to work in. The cool thing about the land business is you could work in all of the counties in America. Nothing is off limits. The trouble is, in a lot of markets, land is just very difficult to sell. Or in some markets, it's very, very competitive to find a deal because you're competing with new home builders, people entitling land, you're dealing with realtors, you're dealing with other investors, house wholesalers that accidentally market the land, you name it. And so what we're looking for here is what I call non-obvious high demand markets. And these are all over the country. At any given time, there's hundreds of counties that are booming. People are buying land left and right, and there's hardly anyone else working there. That's what we're looking for. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull data. This is the actual ownership data that says, hey, John Smith owns a 5-acre property in Costilla County. This is his mailing address. This is when he bought it. This is what he paid for it, etc. The reason that we need this is going to be the backbone of the marketing that we send out to make an offer on the property. And that leads into point number 3. This is what I call pricing offers. Now, if you're a brand new investor, typically we're going to have you start with direct mail. If you're using direct mail, we're going to send out what's called a blind offer. It's simply saying, hey, John Smith, I'm going to pay you $5,500 for your 5-acre property, and here's a purchase agreement to go along with it. That is our marketing piece. 2 pages, cover letter, purchase agreement. Now, the truth is, though, there are other marketing strategies. You could do cold calling, cold texting, RVMs, cold email, you name it. Now, for those other channels, you don't need a price offers on the front end. Those are typically called neutral marketing channels. Trouble is, for most new investors, though, I would recommend staying with something that is very, very simple and is very high trust, which direct mail is. So in that case, we need to aggregate the pricing information to figure out what are properties worth within this acreage range, within this area, and then build our offers off of that. So let's imagine we find out 5 acres in Costilla County are worth $10,000 on average. Then we'll make an offer at $4,500, $5,500, something along those lines, because we know we have margin to flip the deal. Step number 4 is executing the marketing. If you're doing direct mail, that means sending it out through Rocket Print and Mail or something of that sort. If you're doing cold calling, that means picking up the phone and calling that full list. Whatever the marketing channel is, our next step is to execute it. Now, if it's direct mail, for example, that's as simple as just clicking send. If it's cold calling or cold texting, that might take you weeks to chew through that data and get all of your marketing sent out. And the goal with our marketing is not to close deals through our marketing. That comes next. The goal of our marketing is to get people to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in an offer, or I'm interested in selling my property. The reason that landowners sell is because they're looking for speed and convenience. They're saying, hey, I am selling this at a discount, but I want to get this wrapped up in the next few weeks and I want it to be headache free. But the real magic happens in step number 5, and that's called the acquisition process. So our marketing gets people to raise their hand and opt in, but the acquisition process is where we actually refine our offer, refine the terms of the offer, figure out who's qualified, who's not qualified, and ultimately get the deal wrapped up. This is one of the areas that almost every single new beginner gets wrong. Both our acquisition process and what I call your acquisition skill. How good are you at building rapport, at building trust? How good are you at pre-qualifying, etc.? So it's both having the right process and having the right level of skill. A lot of beginners in this space think that the magic happens on the marketing side. It really doesn't. You can be successful with any marketing channel. They all work. This is the magic spot. Step 6 is due diligence. Now, due diligence is twofold. The first thing that we need to do is figure out the features of the property, the pros and cons, the access, the slope, wetlands, flood zones, you name it. And then from there, once we've gotten a good picture of this property, we need to find like-kind relevant comps to actually verify what exactly is this property worth and what am I willing to pay. Of course, we do that at a high level in the pricing offer section, but once we actually get a qualified opportunity, we have to create underwriting bespoke to that specific property. So here we're dealing with kind of high level averages, if you will. And then here we're going and niching down and actually figuring out what are we dealing with. So for example, in your marketing, you might have offered $5,500 for that 5 acre. You might come to find out that this property has really bad access, no utilities, and funky slope. So you end up having to adjust your offer to $4,200. Now, outside of the acquisition process, this is an area that most new people, and honestly, even some seasoned veterans, get severely wrong. They don't know how to underwrite properties to figure out what is it actually worth and what am I willing to pay. And that's where a lot of opportunities created in this business, because land values are relatively ambiguous. It's not as easy as underwriting a house. And so there's a lot that goes into this in terms of being able to avoid dangerous deals and go after the right deals that other folks are missing. Now, next we move to point number 7, and that's funding. How are we going to fund this deal? The faulty belief that I had when I started in 2019 is that I needed money to fund all of my own deals. Trouble was, I only had $7,000 when I came in. So I was limited by only going after small properties because I thought I had to fund everything. The beautiful thing is there are hundreds of funders out there that want to fund your land deals, whether that's joint venture funding, hard money lending, you name it. Now, inside of Leah, we've got dozens of incredible funders that would fund any one of your deals so long as it's a good deal. We typically recommend new investors to start with joint venture funding. You're not taking on debt. Someone's funding the purchase price of your property. They're getting equity in the deal. And the beautiful thing about joint venture funding is the deal is your resume. Even if you're a brand new investor, if you've got a good deal, people will want to fund that. And this is an area that you really have to get right, because if you don't have funding in place, most of us don't have enough money to start the business, float our software stack, float marketing, and go fund a dozen deals. So this allows you to essentially do infinite deals really at almost any price point, so long as it's a good deal. And our last step here is what's called dispositions. Okay, so we did all of these 7 points prior, but we haven't actually gotten paid yet because we haven't sold the property. Now, there's a lot that goes into getting dispositions right. The first thing is, if we're working in the right market, our property should sell pretty quickly. So picking a market is actually intimately related to dispositions, but there's still a few more steps. We've got to syndicate our listing. Okay, we've got to make sure that our listing is posted everywhere. That could be on all of the third-party MLS platforms, that could be on Facebook, that could be on land.com, you name it. The more eyeballs you can drive to that property, the faster you're going to sell it. Now, the next thing that we need to do here is make sure that we are picking a great agent to partner with. For years, I thought agents were a terrible idea for selling land, and I've come to realize that I was sorely mistaken. You can delegate a lot of the work to the agent so you can focus on getting more deals. And if they're a great land-focused agent, they'll be able to sell the property faster, and in some cases for a higher amount than you could on your own. One of the things that I've learned after hundreds of deals is that land doesn't really sell, or doesn't sell easily, unless a buyer can get to the property. The great thing about an agent is they can show the property to prospective buyers and walk them through the property. And that is kind of the gateway that we have to walk through before people start submitting offers on our deal. Now, the last thing that we need to do with dispositions is we need to put together the correct marketing package. What is the correct marketing package? It's the sequence of the photos that we have, it's the quality of the photos, it's the editing of the photos, and it's the listing copy that we write. Ultimately, because we're selling these properties to retail buyers, we need to paint the vision. Hey, this is a 5 acre that's fantastic for homesteading. Zoning allows you to build a cabin, blah, 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 blah. Make it very, very clear what someone can do with this property and help paint the vision. Now, all of this is fine and dandy, but the problem is you might know this already and not be getting results. It's not enough just to know these things. It's about knowing them and then executing on them correctly. Despite what anyone will tell you, there is a real skill to being a good land investor. It's not as easy as sending out marketing and getting deals on autopilot.